I have witnessed the debilitating trauma of your past. And I think sometimes people find it hard to believe because they see you and they think this person was bullied or this person experienced any sort of ostracization. And I can tell you, I've witnessed nights of you bawling in the fetal position because of the trauma that you experienced when you were younger, and also the healing that you've done. Sometimes your viewers don't necessarily appreciate the immense amount of work that you have done to get to where you are today, and how proud I am of that. Your exterior, while it's lovely, pales in comparison to the interior that you hold.
So I married him. So last week, y'all gave me some interesting feedback, or at least some of you did. I got feedback around, Kaelan, who are you to be talking about body positivity? Being the kind of guy you are, having the body that you do, being on the journey you've been on to make so much changes externally in your body, how are you the person to be talking about this? If you were truly self-accepting, would you need to put in all that work to look this way? I think that's a really valid comment, and I posted my response to these people, but I thought it might merit further conversation. Furthermore, I thought it might be a conversation that I can't effectively address as this guy. That's him. In case you don't remember him or haven't met him before, that's my beautiful husband, Anthony Gutierrez.
Thank you for inviting me or accepting my offer to come on.
Oh, it's my sincere pleasure. We have been together for over 9 years. He is my favorite person on the planet. I am still immensely turned on by him and think he is everything in a bag of chips. He is smart, he is philosophical, he is spiritual, he is kind, he is beautiful, he is sexy, he is playful, he is a joy to be in partnership with. Something you guys probably don't know is that everything I share in these videos with you usually come from conversations we've had. And we've been together for years now, so the conversations are many and varied.
So I'm not an active participant in your channel, but I'm someone who, as you said, we engage a lot before you post your videos, and I like to read the comments and kind of see how people are engaging with it, and that often leads to conversations that we have afterwards. And this last video really resonated with me because I think it's something that I can empathize with. I mean, when I look at you today, you're very different exterior than the man that I met. I think it's hard for some people to see the journey that you have gone on, and it's a privilege that I hold, and sometimes I forget that people see you as somebody who kind of has existed in the world as you do today.
I'll put a couple pictures up here so you can see around the time we met a little bit more of me.
And I will say that internally, Kaelan has become the man that I saw when we met. And aesthetically, I have loved every version of you. Obviously, I found you immensely attractive at the beginning. I love the way you look when we met, and it's fun to have you look the way that you look now. But what keeps me immensely enthralled is your mind and your heart. And your heart more than your mind. So,
thank you. So, what do you say to these people who say, Kaelan, you're somebody who put a lot of energy into cultivating a larger, more masculinized body? Who are you to talk about body acceptance? And if you were so accepting, why'd you have to go on this journey? Are people who put in energy to be more conventionally attractive, are they allowed to talk about body acceptance when clearly there's some disconnect internally within themselves?
I empathize with people who view this channel or view some of his videos and are perplexed by the messenger, because some of the things he talks about feels like he would have no idea what it feels like to know the existence beyond what you see. I have witnessed the debilitating trauma of your past. And I think sometimes people find it hard to believe because they see you and they think this person was bullied or this person experienced any sort of ostracization. And I can tell you, I've witnessed nights of you bawling in the fetal position because of the trauma that you experienced when you were younger, and also the healing that you've done. And so I think sometimes your viewers don't necessarily appreciate the immense amount of work that you have done to get to where you are today, and how proud I am of that. And your exterior, while it's lovely, pales in comparison to the interior that you hold.
So I married him.
And one of the things too that I hear is the calling out of your immense privilege. And I think that's something that we talk a lot about. As his husband, who's not white, who's not, I'm 5'6", I'm older, I don't weigh as much, I'm not hung, all these sort of things that sometimes people criticize you for. I think sometimes think you probably are someone who's looking for that in your partner, or someone who doesn't appreciate individuals who don't also exhibit those qualities. And I don't know if everyone, obviously people who don't know you can't necessarily appreciate the fact that how you show up on your YouTube channel is exactly how he shows up in real life. There is no filter, and sometimes I will watch your videos and be like, I cannot believe you shared that, or can't believe you were that intimate about the details. And I've grown a lot in that I have, I come from a culture that you don't share certain details about your life, that you keep them private. And one of the things that I've learned and appreciated about you is that what we keep in the shadow is often what turns into shame. We talk a lot about how it's so important, integration, and how it's so important to do the shadow work, to bring it into the light, and to make it part of the ecstatic experience. And so what I see the work that you do is oftentimes taking things that you used to hold in the shadow, and as part of your journey of healing is bringing it into the light of day and bringing it to YouTube and being vulnerable about those things. And I also think that we talk about privilege. And in my work, I'm a social worker who now has the privilege of working in private company, but I still do social work, and I talk a lot about privilege and what we have a responsibility to do with the privilege that we have. That's something that you take to heart, is how do you leverage the privilege that you have to use it in a way for greater good and understanding.
In the comments section, that's something I responded to one of the people commenting at who are you to talk about body acceptance? And what I wrote back was, yeah, I get to speak from a place of privilege and inclusion now. I can walk into spaces and feel pretty well received and that people want to engage. But the question is would you rather me not talk about these things? Would you rather me not bring to light the terrible judgment within the LGBTQ community of people who are not traditionally attractive, or the body shaming that happens, or the stigmatization that happens due to different aspects like race, or your abilities, or ableism? Would you rather we not talk about these things because there's plenty of social media influencers who just show up and use their pretty privilege to get attention, and that's the end of the story? Or would you rather these discussions be had? And I am an imperfect messenger. We are all imperfect messengers, but I really, for my part, want to do what I can so that other people don't have to experience what I experienced growing up, which was basically having my identity be destroyed, being told every day I was worthless. You might as well die. Why don't you just go kill yourself? Nobody wants you, nobody loves you. Because there are people still today who aren't kids, it's terrible when you're a kid, but as adults, who are receiving that message from their peers.
And so we talk about this too, and I talk a lot about this when it comes to race or when it comes to dominant culture. And if we're going to have cultural change, many times that responsibility lies with quote-unquote the oppressor or the dominant culture. We cannot have change without our allies. We cannot have change without the dominant culture understanding what disenfranchised looks like and means. And so I do think it needs to come from people who hold the privilege and recognize what that privilege looks like and what not having that privilege feels like. A lot of our conversations are about how we are continuously on a journey, and I encourage you, and we talk about that every topic you bring up, that it comes from a place of humility, that it comes from a place of you too are on your own journey. And one of the things I love about your channel and love about you is the vulnerability and the courage to share where you are, and also the courage you have to continue to grow.
Right. We're not at an end point. I still have a lot more to figure out.
And I think the other thing, the theme that I hope people appreciate and that you talk about is the complexity of the human existence, where we are both looking for contentment, at the same time striving for change. Your desire to change your body or your desire to look a certain way. And I would continually ask you, where's that coming from? And came to witness that a lot of it was healing work.
I think a lot of people who would meet me today would say, oh, you're so confident. You show up naked here on YouTube and online. Like, you would never feel insecure about your body. I was bullied for not being masculine enough, for being too queer, for being too tall and gangly, for being too thin. My family used to jokingly call me the albino anorexic because I was so thin and pasty. My mom used to have my dad follow me into public bathrooms to make sure I wasn't bulimic. Like, it was not fun. I did not feel attractive. I couldn't get a date in high school or college. I didn't know anyone even found me remotely attractive up until my mid-20s when I started my coming out journey.
One of the things that I always continually encourage you to do is to remain humble through the process. And I've seen that. Even like when we have had experiences of opening up our relationship or playing, my husband isn't the one who's going to go after the most muscular person, but really does find all bodies attractive. And I would sometimes be like, oh, that was interesting that you were kind of playing with that person or whatever. And my husband really walks the walk. He talks the talk, walks the walk. And his own personal journey, he'll talk about his penis and some of the things that he finds to be a big turn on for him, especially for himself. Doesn't necessarily reflect, I'm not hung, right? I do not look the way that he looks. And he continually shows me affection and tells me how beautiful he thinks I am with how different I look from him. So my husband isn't someone who's looking for somebody. Like, it is his own personal journey. His physical experience is his own personal journey of finding healing, of finding acceptance, of leaning into the shadow, exploring what physicality looks like, feels like. And I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't witness it.
None of our friends are chosen for their appearance. They're chosen for their character and their conversation and their soulfulness and how they make us feel. I think my husband is gorgeous and absolutely beautiful and he turns me on so much. But my husband has a very different relationship to his view of his own attractiveness.
Yeah, I mean, I am not what a dominant culture of attractiveness would probably, pin. And I know this from we've been on Grindr before, and my husband will get like hundreds of dings, and I will probably get one out of the 50, 60 that he gets or whatever. And so it's a different level, and I also understand and recognize that I have privilege too. So I'm not saying I don't have any qualities of attractiveness or whatnot, but it's very different than my husband. We'll walk into a room, especially with the way he looks now, and he'll get a lot more attention. And I've had to reconcile with that and that experience. But I think how he holds that and how he holds me in that experience is what really has created a different layer of understanding and appreciation for his own personal journey and the way that he shows up in the world.
Do you feel like there's any conflict with having these messages of self-acceptance, but then at the same time showing up naked, showing off my body? Does that send mixed messaging? Am I contradicting myself?
I mean, I think sometimes it's difficult to hold. Right, I do.
And difficult to hold in a culture like this platform or social media platforms where bodies get attention, sex sells, sexuality gets attention. A video I post shirtless or naked gets a hell of a lot more views than something where I'm posting with a shirt on.
And it's complex because, yes, part of it is you looking for validation.
Yeah, sure. Wanting to be told I'm pretty and valuable when I learned the entire opposite message growing up.
And so I do think there's complexity in that. But at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for. I think we're all looking to be seen and loved in some degree or fashion. It is part of the human existence. And so who am I to tell you that there isn't healing work to be done and the experience of being healed by having a certain level of validation that you didn't experience at all when you were a kid? And that as long as you are aware what's the dynamic nature and constantly asking yourself that question, which I feel like you do, then that's just part of the journey. And how you treat other people, right? I think that's the biggest thing, is that it would be different if you had this experience and you felt like it gave you the right or ability then to treat other people differently.
Sure.
And I've never experienced that from you. Your own personal journey doesn't affect the kindness, the grace, the love, and validation that you give others. That's something I'm really proud of my husband, is that while he holds a privilege, he understands and he challenges himself to understand what that means and what it feels like for people who do not hold that privilege. And I think it's quite brave for somebody to come on here and say, I haven't figured it out. This is where I am. I'm sharing with you my journey. And in a year or 2 years, you may see a video that totally tells something different.
In fact, you can. 4 years on here now, so you can definitely go back and see that experience.
But I think that's all of us, and that should be something that we're all striving for, is not to be static, but is to change, is to evolve, is to question, is to learn. I hope what you get from this channel is a peek into somebody's journey of looking for self-acceptance, of understanding the beautiful, complex world we live in, and the beautiful complexity of the human experience within that world.
I think one of the things we explore a lot on this channel, and we do in our personal lives, is that opposite things can be true. And one of the pieces of feedback I hear is, if you were so body accepting, you wouldn't need all of that. You wouldn't need to change your body so much. I agree, that is true, right? Like, ideally we'd be at a place where we don't need anything external. And yet I can also acknowledge that the external has been a fun adventure to go on, and this is a canvas we get to play with. You've used the metaphor before about people and money. Like, if you say, oh, I want to live a life of worth and not worry about money, but then money is gifted to you, should you not take advantage of it?
So for somebody who says you should be content with what you have and not desire material wealth, and then to be able to be given access to it, would you leverage that material wealth? Would you be curious as to what it would be like if you did have an extra $1 million? Should you be faulted for taking advantage of it? It's complex. I don't know if there's a single right answer. And that's one of the things that I love about how you approach life, or how we approach life, is that there is no right or wrong. It's what you learn from the journey. If this is basically your opportunity to experience life, to learn life, and that you're given this particular path to learn as many lessons as you can, then are we fully exercising that opportunity? We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. It is complex to say we should find contentment with where we are, but yet continually look for change and growth. And then you're judged with how you do and what you do with the new resources that you have. It's not the fact that you take it, it's how you use it.
And that's what I said to one of the people coming at me for this. I said, would you rather me not talk about it? Yes, I may be speaking from a place of privilege of some kind, but would you rather me not address it? Because there's plenty of social media influencers who have a platform who don't highlight inequity and don't highlight creating safer spaces for queer individuals and more inclusivity. Would you rather me just ignore it? Are only people who are demonstrating a profound lack of privilege being totally marginalized? Are they the only ones who are allowed to speak on it? One of the messages I feel like I heard once in meditation that really spoke to me is, you've been given this body so people will look. Once they're looking, make them listen. And that's really an idea I take to heart.
And I think we all have privilege. We all have privilege. If you woke up today, you have privilege.
Yes.
Right? And so the question becomes, what do you do with that privilege? That is also the thrust of social justice, is that the oppressed alone cannot be the ones responsible for the change. That we also have to look for those who are in power and who have the privilege to be able to recognize it and also be part of that change.
Amen.
And so, yeah, I think what more of an appropriate messenger, as long as you are also walking the walk.
Yeah.
And that's what I am so keenly attuned to with you, is that what you say is what you do. And I hold you accountable to that, as you do yourself.
Yeah.
And we talk about that all the time, is, are you being true to your message, or have you changed with your experience? And then you'll come on here and you'll talk about how, oh my God, I think I've changed a little bit in the way that I viewed something.
Especially when you're a little neurodivergent like me, and how I process things isn't like everybody processes things.
Yes, my husband's neurodivergence is what I consider to be his superpower. He sometimes lacks the social filter, but also gives him the freedom to question and bring into the light what others would hide in shame. And that's what I find to be so sexy about him, is that he will investigate something and share it where others would do it in the dark of night. And we get very little done in that space. And the courage then to share it with everyone in a way that puts them even more vulnerable. And there's strength in that. Once again, a conundrum, that there's strength and vulnerability. And we know that to be true. When you own your own quote unquote shameful bits, then in so doing, you've wiped away the shame. Another conundrum, right? Like, it's just one of those things about life and its truths, is that how can we hold two opposing things at the same time? How can we give grace to two opposing things at the same time? And how can we be humbled by knowing or recognizing I do not have all the answers?
And having grace for each other that we're all doing the best we can with the limited resources we have.
Absolutely. And we cannot judge someone unless we've lived every moment of their life.
Amen. Thank you, my love. You are an inspiration to me and to all these other people. I hope you get to see more of him because he's so special. And if you ever come on retreats with us, you also get to have the magic of this beautiful human guiding the way along with me.
And thank you for watching and supporting my husband. This is a labor of love, and it is something that we have talked about since the moment we got together, about a desire of creating a community where we could talk about these things, where we can grow together, where we can uplift the world in this journey of finding our ecstatic self.
Thank you all for your time.
And thank you.
I love you.
Love you.
You're so cute.
You're the cutest.